the threshold of difference is below what you call 1 JND. J stop, N stop D, called just noticeable difference. It's a centermost concept in um, um, what you call signal detection theory in psychological experimentation. Point here is that the individual variations, Ramesh, because everything is a variant. Human beings are our variants. That normal distribution table, curve, shows as many number of human beings as their variants very physically and their variants vis-a-vis every competency, including the J and D for weights. Then, like Ashwini pointed out, their J and D for differentiating the transition from one side to the next is very high. Get the point?
No, sir. Can you explain once more, sir?
You got the concept of J and D, right?
Yes.
J and D meaning the just noticeable difference required in order to perceive one thing as really different from the other thing. It is applicable to weight, it is applicable to sound signals, visual signals, and including idea signals, including interaction signals, including interpersonal, everywhere it is applicable. I say one dialogue to Ramesh and he feels. I say the same dialogue to, let's say, another person, he does not feel at all. Because his JND for feeling is higher than that of Ramesh. Rather, Ramesh's sensitivity can sense, let us say, 5 JND of a conflicting dialogue. Whereas Ramesh's friend, he needs 20 JND. Then only he would feel.
Okay, sir. Right.
This is the problem with whistleblowing also, Ramesh and Ganesh. You identify a small problem at the rudimentary projection level and you mention it to your boss. And the boss says, "You please shut up. You have some apprehension or you are a doubting Tom." Because if you talk to that person, he will say, "No, no, no, I did not think like that." And he repeats it when a major mistake is done, Ashwini, when the difference is above much high above the JND for significant people in the group, then they will say, there is a problem. But by that, the problem may reach beyond repair condition.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Let's say minimum dialogue variation of the wife or husband. The highly sensitive or emotionally sensitive or whichever way, the wife notices it and tells the husband that you said that because you don't love me. And husband is asking, what is the evidence? I said I will go tomorrow and get it. Actually, there is a moment of hesitation for the husband to go out at the night to get masala dosa. But there is no evidence. Get the point? I'm just giving some different range of examples. The point here is what actually Ashwini mentioned, though she mentioned in the context of a process. But it is connected with what Ramesh said also. That the diameter, the circumference of the coin, that turning is actually, I think, circumference of the coin where it turns to the side is the thinnest point, right, Ramesh? Yeah. And to such an extent that there is no point at all. And when that thinnest point is covered, and then there's an entire new dimension is possible, Ganesh. And that these people are perhaps aware, Ganesh. Therefore, they don't allow that thin point to be covered.
Yeah, I think the world's conflicts are a great example, sir. They continue to look in opposite
Yeah.
directions. And even though there is a third person who attempts to show them both the directions and gets them to switch directions and perceive the other direction, they are adamant about their own. So the only
Not
example I
just
can think
adamant.
of,
They,
the only example
the,
I can think of where this opposite direction is kind of taken away is when the thing that we are talking about is not opaque. If it is glass and you can see through in both directions, even though it has
mm,
two faces and both the faces are still facing in the opposite directions, you can actually see through in both directions.
actually, no. From that one direction, one side of the glass, he see the other space only through that side. If it is a glass, he will never see the other side at all.
No, I'm not talking about a reflecting glass, sir. I'm
No, no,
talking
no.
about, let's say,
Normal glass.
window.
In a normal, absolutely transparent glass, you will not become even aware of the other side of the glass because you continue to look from one side only. And the other point also suggested is this leaders or managers of a given situation, they are just not ready to make even a transient visit to the other side. Because if they have to visit the other side, at least they should be at least to have a physical change of time and space, like another mentioned. And when they make that time and space, they feel doubtful. They are worried. They cannot do it for various other reasons. Anyway, that's not our main discussion. We will discuss. That's all things you discuss. We are now talking about the linkage. How the three dimensions are actually linkage of the basic thing. We are talking about even the basic one dimensional, let us say, a small plate. Even for that small plate, when there are three directions, okay, though they are linkaged, it is not seen by the people. Then what about multi-dimensional things? About events and episodes and conflicts and decisions and choices and behaviors and expressions and actions and ways of languages and all, it is infinitely complex. So coming back again to that reality or the third universal truth or a fact that of linkages, I have one more question. And there are several more questions. Every variant is an expression, is a manifestation of its invariant. What is the linkage between, what is the possible nature of the linkage between invariant and the given variant? Or what is the linkage between the cupness and the cup? Or I will make it a little more simple.
The
Where
referent
is the
reality.
time space location of the cupness of the cup?
The referent reality of the cup is the linkage between the variant and the invariant.
Ganesh, do not talk so fast. It will not be recorded properly.
I said that it is the referent reality
Uh,
of the cup, which is the linkage between the variant and the invariant.
which is the yeah, that is very correct, and I just wanted to postpone that response because we are yet to cover reality of the referent. But he's absolutely right. Why don't you explain that?
So,
Yeah, yeah, clear. Once again, just explain. Yeah.
for example, it is lying on my table. It is in a particular room and it is used for a particular purpose. And I have used it recently, let's say 5 minutes ago, and I have placed it. And it is personalized with my name on it. So this could be the reality of the referent uh, of that particular cup.
Yeah, there are many more orbits of that reality. We will come to that later. And we will always hold on that example of cup so that it becomes more stabilized in you. Now, now the question stands coming back. What is the possible nature of that linkage between the invariant of a cup which is existing in the wearer of the designer or the maker or the creator of the cup and the created cup? What is the linkage, or I will make it to the next point. What is the nature of that linkage, or how that linkage worked? Now we're coming to the process of linkaging.
The designer has perceived the invariantness of the cup, that which is the cupness.
Okay.
So that is the linkage between his mental impression to the reality of the cup,
Now it's a reality of the cup, referent of the cup. Okay, you
referent
can
of the
say
cup.
reality of the cup, no problem, nothing. That's that what you said is clearly understood. Now, once again, what are you talking?
The linkage
Hmm.
between the cup, the
Okay.
invariantness of the cup and the actual cup, the referent of the cup.
So, question made very simple. What is the linkage between the invariant and the variant of a cup? Yeah. Once again.
The invariant is a point of origin for the variant.
All right. One. Okay. That is actually a different statement about invariant. That is not the answer to the question, but that's a significant point about the framework of invariant variant linkage relationship. Definitely, invariant is the origin. Okay, that is a not that's a beautiful perception, Anuradha, no doubt. Many more perceptions you have to develop, all of you. The question was, what is the linkage between the invariant and the variant?
The design of the cup is the linkage between the invariant and the variant.
All right, but that
Can
is,
I explain that?
wait. All right, explain.
For example, when we think of when we see a cup, when we use a cup, there is a configuration in which the cupness is held. If that configuration is changed, for example, if it's elongated 1 foot, then it becomes a pipe and not a cup.
Mm, don't go there. Don't go there. Do not go there.
So, no, I was explaining what I mean by design.
No,
And
no,
that
that is
design is
irrelevant. That is
essential.
relevant. That is irrelevant here, Minashi. No. Question is very clear. What is the linkage between the invariant and the variant? You can use the example of a cup or pen or whatever. Or you don't have to, yeah. Okay.
The variant is a
Wait. Remember the concept sense of linkage. It is about the connectedness between more than two variables or variants. Okay, the actual connectedness, like the one side of the
okay.
coin
Understood.
connected to the side of the coin which is connected to the other side of the coin. It is
Mm-hmm.
physical linkage in this case of a coin, because we are now beginning with the physical because it is sensible. We are yet to go to subtle and different dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we may have to go to the linkage between the woodcutter and the satori. That is at a different level. We may have to go to the linkage between the woodcutter and the slipping axe. That's a different level. When you resolve that linkage, you will get linkage with the you and the satori, for example. Because linkage is the universal process truth. There may be infinite number of things in this world, infinite number of variants in the world, invariants in the world, but linkaging makes existence. Okay? So, what is the linkage between invariant and variant? And you take the example of a cup. Come on, you have to do it. Now, you know the referent of, you know the consistence of invariant, you know the consistence of variant. We have clarified it by the simple, beautiful example of a coin, which all of you have done so beautifully. Now you say, what is the linkage between invariant and variant? And take the example of a cup. Once again, reviewing, the invariant of a cup existed in the imagination or visualization or mental impression of the cup creator. And we are talking about the first cup creator, even a normal cup creator, even a designer. Please do not think that the cups what you see is just like that made. There was a designer of a cup. And that design was inspected by the production team, production manager, inventory team, what you call cost working team, marketing team. All of them must have inspected at least 10 different designs before they decided to have the mold and make it. Okay. That design was sitting there. The target, you have to design another cup. Cup is a highly competitive market. We want to get the finest cup. How your masterpiece? That is the instruction given to the cup designer. And he or she is sitting there. Like some time back, Aswati was sitting there to have the finest design of an architectural innovation. She was playing around with the possible, probable variations of architectural designs, which can be absolutely innovative. I'm sure she must have played around with dozens and dozens of themes. Then she works out in her SCAD or whatever architectural program and she makes the design. Then it is not okay. But there is some invariant which is guiding her. That's what she tells him. This is not okay. So, what is the linkage between that invariant and the final design of an architecture? Okay, that's a little complex. Okay, of a cup, a mud cup.
Is it a concept sense
Ah, yes, the concept sense is there. Concept sense of what?
of a cup? That is the linkage between the invariant and variant.
That is what Meenakshi also said some time back. That is for an observer, that is a fact, of course. There is a linkage between that. All right, one, two.
So I have another way of describing
And
what
give,
Ashwati said.
Ashwati, give some more thoughts about that. That is little deeper. Work on that. All right. Yes, Meenakshi.
I was just rephrasing what Ashwati just said.
Yeah.
And I would put it as, in the case of a cup, the variant holds the invariantness of the cup.
Or the other way around.
No, because the material and the shape is the variant,
Yeah.
and the cupness is the invariant.
Yeah.
So the variants hold the invariant.
True.
Yeah.
Variant holds or symbolizes or manifests or expresses or reveals.
Yes,
Yes.
expresses and reveals.
That
Yes.
is in reverse engineering. You're right. So you're talking about again a
Oh
linkage.
yeah.
Agree. No.
Yes.
That is a linkage.
I get your point as well. The other way. Yeah.
Yeah. No. What you said is a linkage. Linkage is both ways. No problem. You are
Hmm.
related to you have your linkage to your daughter, and the daughter is linkage to the mother. Agreed. That's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
So, but now I will revise the question. How that invariant is manifested into the variant? That is the question.
So two things there. One,
Yeah.
there's setting involved and there's doing involved.
What is
Setting
that
is a
setting?
linkage. So setting is a linkage, otherwise it will not manifest.
Yeah, make it little more clear, Ganesh.
So in order for the cup to be manifested, the referent to be manifested, which is the variant, it
There is
needs to
that,
be
yes, yeah, exactly. Very
the
good.
process of setting is required.
Wonderful point. Yeah, go think further every time. The next point is a wonderful point. In other words, there comes the so-called while in setting design. Without a setting, it is it is simply, it's a universal principle. Without a setting, it is impossible to translate an invariant into variant. But what Ganesh said is something more advanced. Even that, like Anuradha said, it's an advanced point. That is not the answer to the question. But it's a very higher order point which is absolutely acceptable and appreciated. It all happens because you are all reflecting, and in that process of reflection, which is very freewheeling, you are coming out with the different observations and you are talking it out beautiful. No doubt.
Then there is the doing also, sir.
And even again, this point alone is worth 1 hour discussion. That I thought we will come later. Okay. Now, in that setting, okay, all right, the invariant is there, the setting is there, so the variant will happen. Is that what you say, Ganesh?
I am saying the doing is required.
The
In order for the doing, there should be a doer.
doer. So the invariant of the cup is the imagination. The variant of the cup is the physical object. The
Okay.
doer, the designer, is the linkage between the imagination and the physical object.
Using a setting.
You're seeing a setting.
Inevitably, having a setting is invariant. This I have been telling from the very beginning. We will not discuss about that design setting process. That I am just introducing the concept. Uh, we are not discussing it because all of you understood the concept and concept sense of design, setting, and process. That's why nobody asked me a question. That itself is to be discussed in 2-3 sessions. Actually, different point. Okay. Now once again, Ramesh, what are the four aspects? List down one,
One is
not in rank order. One. All right. A.
the invariant of the cup exists in
Okay.
the imagination.
Okay.
The variant of the cup exists as a physical object before me. So the designer or the doer is the linkage between the invariant, which is the imagination, and the physical object, which is the variant. So the imagination cup, the physical cup, and the designer. So these are the linkages.
No. Designer and imagination is one and the same in this context. All right. All right. So the rather the invariant of the cup, the setting,
The setting.
the doer, the doing, and the variant expression. Got the point? Once again, point number one, invariant. Okay.
Yeah.
The two, the doer. Three, the setting. Four, the doing. And five, the variant expression. 5 aspects. All right.
Invariant.
All right. Now, what are the critical other linkages operating here? Let us say a doer, like in Ramesh language, a designer, come doer. Okay. It is not that Ramesh created the design and somebody else is doing. No, that is a different question. Now, for the sake of the integrity of discussion, the invariant, the doer, the setting, the doing, and the variant. What are the critical what are the linkages here? What are the significant linkages among these 5? the variant expression of the invariant depended upon what all things? That is the question. Out of the three remaining.
It's dependent on the doer.
Yeah. The doing and the setting.
Yes.
Out of these three, out of this doer, setting, and doing, these are the three. Invariant, like Ramesh said, somebody may give you a design. The doer is the critical. For the doer, critical is the doing. When there is a wonderful doer or a complete doer or doer who believes in completeness, who is capable of doing in its completeness, he needs a setting which has all the completeness, which will facilitate. Get the point? There is a wonderful doer. He is capable of wonderful doing. And if the setting is not wonderful, the variant will not conform to the invariant held in the mind of the doer. So which one is more critical? So is the setting more critical or doing more critical?
I think the setting is still more critical, sir.
Yeah.
Both are critical.
Yeah, that is the fact of it. Both are critical, definitely.
It depends on the perspective by which you see, sir. So
No. How?
So when you are seeing the physical form of the cup, so the setting becomes as the critical element. But when you're looking at the perspective of who is the person who has designed it, from that perspective, when you see, the doer becomes very important.
No. There is forget about designer here.
Okay.
Designer meaning even he is a designer if he has to have that invariant perception in the mind, Ramesh. Assume that he is doing the doing. Ideally, he should do.
He should do.
Because he only has that invariant perception. How will can you, without the medium of a printed design, convey a design by talking to somebody? Ramesh, not possible.
Not possible.
You are basically an inherent designer, therefore you always see a design manifested on a paper. That is why. Or can you talk about an architectural design to somebody? Impossible. This is the question which we discussed sometime back with Ganesh about the design of a building and the manifestation of the building. I don't remember exactly. So I don't remember actually. You cannot live. You cannot cook and sleep and rest in the design of an architecture. You need the manifested architecture. You cannot live in the design. You need the design translated in the setting. In case of design setting, forget about that. This was a discussion before. Forget about the designer. Okay, if you are particularly using the concept of designer. But in this case, designer is the doer, Ramesh. That's all.
Okay, sir.
So I feel the setting is still the most critical.
Because why do you think so? Why do you think so?
Because even if the most competent doer doesn't do the setting right, then you won't get it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But I think, no. There is one more reason. Okay, there is little more critical also there, Ganesh. That is, The referent or the variant comes not out of the invariant, not out of the doer, not out of the doing, but out of the setting.
Out of the setting only. Eventually, all variants are subject to setting only, sir.
Definitely, that's the problem of India also, Ganesh. That's a very problem of India. The pure population setting, the traditional setting, the mindset setting of people, and of course the machine setting. Machine setting, now we are importing good machines from outside and all that, so it's okay. Somewhat. In fact, most of the modern things in India is made out of the quality of setting only, Ganesh. And now it is artificial programmed CNCs and programmed machines. You just press the button and it comes out and we take credit. That's all. The doers and doings are all as stupid as ever before only.
So, how about a situation where the setting is perfect and there is nothing more required for setting, and but the doer is incompetent?
That is what Anuradha, the entire entrepreneurs are trying for. Now robots and artificial intelligences are there. Now we need to select people who can press buttons. That's enough. But to answer your question, then the variant will be affected. Sorry, Anuradha, that's all. Now, what is artificial intelligence? It come another see in the coming 10 years. I would say the employment will come down to less than 30% in manufacturing industries. It will come down to less than 20% in service industries. Now, even in India, I don't know whether Ganesh is aware. Most of the government formalities can be done just sitting in a room by the computer, Ganesh.
Yeah.
Amaya got a registration for his MSME unit. I know. In the past, it would take a minimum 2 to 3 years and going after the office one after the other. He got the license number in just 24 hours. Even competent people will find it difficult to get a so-called job in manufacturing companies. Now we need a different level of competency, for which we need a different level of competency with the so-called recruiting people and training people. Because 80% of the activities of most of the manufacturing companies will be done completely by artificial intelligence and robotics. Now we need wonderful people in the organization. Maybe I would say mystically enlightened people. Because even an idiot can press a button. So we need super competent, wonderful beings in the organizations, and they can be selected. Of course, the top management cannot go around selecting people and training them. So we need super competent, original, creative human resources personnel in companies, organizations, and of course in governments also. But I don't know to what extent governments will do that. At least in India, anyway, that's a different issue. Anyway, oh, that's a very relevant question, Anuradha. That's why we talk. In another 10, 15 years, what will happen in India will be terrible unemployment. Already it is there. Of course, already it is in a dangerous level. Now media talks about that. Now survey being conducted about that. The individuals, suffering individuals are roaming here and there, unable to organize. So it is there. And government of India, there are so many projects making India micro enterprises easy financing. Now every bank is instructed, every bank manager is instructed that he must fund or he must find entrepreneurs, at least 10 entrepreneurs, and must give them funding. Who the people are all going haywire. They have to do something on their own. But what will they do on their own? On one side, government is talking about that, and on the other side, huge monopoly companies are coming up. Who can compete with ITC and Colgate Palmolive and all that? You cannot make even local mixture and sell it in the local market. You cannot make some what you call chips and all those things because big companies with their advertising budget and supply chain arrangement, even local shop in a remote village has ITC products. And what small unit you borrow 75,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees and get some small kitchen equipment and make some mixture and selling it to the local shops. So nobody is interested. So it is going to be a terrible world anyway. At least in India, it is going to be terrible, dangerous. I have already predicted it is started. I am predicting that in 5 years of time, anybody who is walking alone or traveling alone will be interceded by hooligans and they will be threatening them and taking their money. Already it is started. So that's a very unique and building and deeper point. We will come to that later. Actually, you are telling it is the nature process that works behind all these things, right?
Yes, sir.
Of course. I thought it is my discovery and you have also made it. I have a
No,
complete nature.
actually, you only have said it,
All
but I
right.
just remembered it now.
Yeah. Of course, that we will come later. Now,
So
again, the question
the settings can fail. So like a particular setting can stop functioning, like what
that you are
happened
talking
during
about.
Corona times.
Yeah, that is, of course,
Then the
no
doer
doubt.
becomes more relevant. No? What the doer does at that particular point of time when the setting crashes.
Yeah, then that doer will change the
Settings.
invariant perception and he will start making some other variants without using that setting.
But yeah, to continue Veena's question,
Hmm.
sometimes the setting can favor a particular doer.
Now that a lot more such interpretations and observations and reflective thinking are applicable when we come little later, Minashi. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. Anyway, having said it, let us consider it. Okay, what is that point once again, Minashi?
So I was saying the setting can also favor a particular doer versus another. Now let me illustrate with an example. When demonetization happened, Paytm was a small fledgling company which was trying to get into the electronic payment space.
Hmm.
Because demonetization happened, it became huge. If it wasn't for demonetization, that fellow will still be scrambling around to get customers. But that one act, which he had no control over, has completely changed the fortunes of his company and created several others to think of similar business models. So I don't think he's a great businessman, but he just happened to create a product at a very opportune moment, even without his knowing. So that facilitated his enormous growth. That's the point.
Yeah, they are all further remote interpretations, Minashi. Yeah, that's all remote interpretations, and you can talk a lot about such things, of course. Yeah. But what we initially said that uh, the invariant perception, the doer and the doing is finally reaching the outcome of variant is because of the setting. That is the point we
Exactly.
are discussing. Yeah.
Yes,
Now
yes.
you are
So,
talking about a particular setting enable to somebody to achieve whatever it is. That's a different issue. Okay, agreed.
yeah, okay,
That
yeah.
is
So
that's uh,
coming
that is
back to
it.
your
So same is the growth of Bill Gates also.
yeah, but I think Bill Gates was, yes, again, but that was, I think, a much more long drawn process when compared to the sudden fortune of Paytm.
No,
That's the only
no,
difference.
duration is not the issue here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, accepted.
All right.
So coming back to your original point where you said the setting creates the variance.
No. Setting creates the variant. Setting has the predominant role. Rather, all
Yeah.
of them are in a way critical. You see that if you look at the origination or the creation of so many wonderful things in this world, the most critical in that sense, we can say that invariant perception that happened in the original mind of a human being. If that was not there, none of this would happen. In ours, when Newton happened to have that original invariant perception, that was the most critical. But
Yes.
then subsequently we can say experimental situations and the settings of laboratory, etc., etc., etc. Yes, that is true. But in that sense, we can say that original invariant perception is the most critical.
Yeah.
That also we can say.
Yeah. So why?
And
Yes.
and there was again there was an invariant perception and much more huge work in the creation of the setting also. Yeah. For example, if you look at the cup, a conventional cup, mud cup, everybody cannot shape a cup. It is the wonderful competency of that craftsman to keep that whatever clay in proper condition, proper mixing, and rotating that clay wheel and in a certain way. And during that rotation of the clay wheel, his hand has to sort of tune up the clay into that shape of a cup. So there the setting is of course the clay wheel and creative shaping of the hands of the craftsman. But in modern times we have mold and ceramics and heating and cooling and all those things are there, of course. Yeah. Now again, do you see any question there? What is the linkage between the invariant and the final variant? That is the primary question. Or what is that? What is the nature and dynamics? Or what is the referent of that linkage? Question once again. What is the referent or what is the nature of the referent of the linkage between the invariant and finally the variant?
In the case of
Or
the
how will you rephrase this question? Okay, let us begin there. Or how will you reconceptualize this question?
How does that invariant comes into picture? So basically, that is the conversion of a invariant to a variant happens because of certain scenario, because based on the scenario is where the setting comes into play. When the scenario changes, the setting also changes from an invariant to a variant.
What do you refer to by scenario here?
So the scenario is a certain setting is in place because of certain conditions which allows the invariant to be in that setting. So if the scenario changes, so there is one more variable called the scenario. So like how we are talking about invariant, doer, setting, doing, and variant. So that
All
is
those things together you call by the another word scenario.
no, I am not calling as another word scenario. So along with this,
You are talking about another variable called scenario.
another variable called,
What is that scenario? What is it?
for example, okay, let me talk about from a design term itself. So when I am designing a pen for a cool children. So the output of that, what I think about it, about as an invariant, and what comes as a
No. That you are not touched yet.
Okay.
Now you are talking about the formulation of the invariant perception itself.
Yeah. Formulation.
No. That is not our topic now.
Okay. So now our topic is from invariant to variant. Okay.
What is there is a linkage? What is the referent or what is the nature and dynamics of that linkage? That is the question.
Okay.
Of course, this is all theoretical only. This is all theoretical only. But why I want you to do this is to make your attention sharper on the way you reflect upon a focus of topic or a concern, a slice in focus of attention, and how your attention and reflection manages to come out with a response or an interpretation or a conceptualization. That is what is being tested now.
So, okay.
Because whether you do it or not, these are all there. All these things are there. But we are testing our attention and reflection on explaining this. And the entire universe or entire subject matter is nothing but explanation. Okay? That's all.
Sir,
Who is that? Ashwati.
so the relationship is creative energy.
Where is it? What is the referent of that? Where is it? How is it?
The relationship between invariant and variant. That is that connection between the intention and the manifestation of something is the energy that creates.
And what was the track of that energy? Can you say? Like the path from Ernakulam to Munnar, how do you explain it further? What was the trajectory? What was the meandering? What was the nature of movement of that energy?
From the mind to from knowing to doing to being.
No. That is very general answer. No.
Can I try?
That is true. That is true. Yeah, that is actually absolutely beautiful answer. No doubt about that. But that is very generic. You have to be more closer to the orbit. You have an interpretation there. So what is
Ashwati,
the yes,
no,
Meenakshi.
Ashwati, you can try with an example. For example, we talked about a potter making a cup.
Yeah, that's why I said
On a wheel.
cup is a good
On a
example.
wheel. Yeah. So when we use that, as you rightly said, the starting point would be the creative energy. But I would say that the meandering path would be his translation of that
No,
inspiration.
Meenakshi. No. Starting point is not the creative energy.
No,
Starting point
starting
was an
point is the
invariant perception.
invariant perception.
Yeah.
And that creative energy inspires him to get started with the material he has. And the dexterity and skill of his fingers that give shape to the cup would be the pathway through which that inspiration is translated or that energy is translated into the cup.
Somewhat like that. But do not say inspires and all that. Creative
No,
energy
that
flows
through his fingers to form the clay into that cup.
That is a possible way of answering it.
So it's a transformation from potential to reality.
That's also an answer. That is also again a generic answer. That's all true, Anuradha. Like knowing to doing and doing give rise to the being. Now, can you see the linkages? Can you really identify a little more closely how that energy is moving from that invariant perception or like Ramesh said, the design perception to through the hands to the clay. All right, that's enough. forming into the form or shape of a cup. What are the linkages operating there? There must be some linkages. That's why everybody is not able to make a beautiful cup.
Sir, this dimension of learning, the skill, the practice, where from he is starting from zero and he is getting into that setting mode, that process.
Yeah, there is a process.
There's a process.
So, in other words, that's again a generic term. In that process, all that Ramesh said are linkaged. That's all. Now we can ask a question: why that linkage is not operating in some people? These are all left to our discussions and debates and things like that.
Yeah, I was
Why?
just going to ask you that question.
Yeah.
Thinking of Guns N' Roses playing the guitar and why we struggled
Yeah.
with a tune. So the process becomes the person, or the person becomes the process.
That's also very true at a very higher order. Yeah. But so why that? Why certain people are able to become the process itself? That is the question. Like now you're all at that level.
Is it the clarity?
Pardon me?
Is it the clarity of the perception of the invariant?
Clarity is a critical issue. There only the person can know. When you design, like Ramesh would know whether he is clear. We, an observer, cannot know that. Like Ashwini knows what is her clarity about an architectural design. Observer cannot know. But when you see the final output of an architectural diagram or a design diagram, an observer can say, yeah, she must have had clarity. That is something he or she knows. We don't know. Observer cannot know. That is the feeling of that person. Like you have an idea that comes into clarity. If depending upon the clarity of your idea perception, now we are coming into invariant perception of ideas at a later point of time. Depending upon the clarity of the invariant idea being pursued, you will talk about it. You will reflect it in beautiful dialogues if you have language and things like that. Yes, of course.
So Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outlier says 10,000 hours is what it takes for a person to become the process.
Yeah,
I would
then,
say practice,
but that is about
competence,
very higher order performance only. Like
practice and competency.
of course, for any performance become mastery level minimum 10,000 hours. Yeah, that was already told here also in Meenakshi, but nobody talked about 10,000 hours. For Bharatanatyam Arangattam in the conventional schools, they talked about 9 years. So 9 years every day, some 3 hours of practice, it comes to closer 10,000 hours. Yeah, but that's good. Uh, okay, so now reflect upon linkages. Now we have three concepts: invariant, no, more than three. Invariant, variant, okay, the doer, the doing, the setting, and the process linkage. Process here meaning how the doer is translating his invariant perception through varied steps of doing. Because it is not just switch on and then a cup coming. So that process of his shaping the hands, looking at the shape being formed at the center of the clay wheel, you know, how he is perceiving the integrity and the harmony of the design of the cup. You know, if a good, because that clay wheel is rotating and because his hands are so mathematically steady, it is a perfect round. You have to see some of the wonderful makes of clay. That's a different issue. It's a perfect round outside and it is perfect thickness, perfect gradient of thickness. Little more thick in the bottom and gradually beautifully. It can be measured by a micrometer when a great craftsman is making a bowl.